Good afternoon, my name is Professor Lopez, and I'm making this short video. It's possibly going to be a little bit longer, but I'm going to be making this short video about be going over several topics. So essentially, I'm going to be talking about chapter 20. I'm going to be talking about the epilogue. I'm also going to be talking about what's happening in today's world. How is it affecting the CUNY system? How does this apply to everything? So how does this apply to the CUNY system, and how does reorganizing and reframing organizations is similar to what is happening today and the news that is basically coming out? So when it comes to chapter 20, it basically goes over a short story. It goes over a short story of a new I want to say basically a staff member, and that staff member is having an issue when it comes to a high school. And in that high school, there was, problems within the faculty and everything like that. But because of this, he took a 4-frame approach. He basically went over each 4 frames that's been demonstrated throughout this entire book, and he stated the problem in each frame. So let's say, for an example, structural problem. What is the problems in this structure? Political. What is the problems in politics? Human resources, and the symbolic frame, correct? So because of that, he was able to identify the problem, and he also figured out ways to find solutions for each one of these problems. And then also when it comes to the epilogue, essentially, in a very short summary, it is basically stating this is what a leader is. And a leader is able to do this. It's able to adapt. He's able to make decisions, and et cetera, like that. And being able to take upon just decisions in general, just like how this staff member did within the Kennedy High School. But of course, there's a problem going on today. There is an issue going on today, and this is the fact of the coronavirus. And this is impacting everything in general, not even just the educational system, but when you go to small businesses, large corporations, et cetera, and because of that, there is going to be new changes, and it's going to be extremely soon. So one thing that we've been discussing in class for the past 2 classes is the fact that there are new presidents inside the CUNY First system. And because there are new presidents, there is obviously some change. We obviously can't say that they're tackling it at a 4-frame approach, but we are able to see that, yes, they are changing the entire structure of this. So that is how it's affecting CUNY, and that's what's happening today. But also, how does this apply to everything? So, of course, based on the actual structure and how that looks like, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but I have this quick, it's probably backwards. Yeah, it really is. But essentially, what it is basically a power chart, and it shows exactly how the CUNY system is structured. So for an example, at the very top, you have the CUNY Board of Trustees, and then you got the CUNY Chancellor. And from there, they also speak with the other CUNY college presidents and deans. And with that in mind, we see that there is a change in the college presidents, right? We have 4 new college presidents. There's Kenneth Adams, there's Christine, there's, I believe, Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry. And then there's Mr. Monroe, correct? So I did a little bit of research in each single one of them. And it's kind of interesting what I have found so far. And it's because of the fact of what their previous history is, and how I believe why they're put as president because of the specific problem that we have at the moment. But what I believe is not going on is that they're not actually considering on for the future to come post coronavirus, correct? So for an example, when it comes to Kenneth and Adams, right, he's been super involved when it comes to economic development, correct? Which is a huge thing that CUNY is going through at the moment because of the fact that there's just huge budget cuts. There's layoffs of professors. We actually recently seen a protest, I believe, or demonstrations involving how we're trying to deduct that. So we're basically trying to remove that from the possibilities. And ultimately, because there's not that many students and not that many students coming into the system, obviously there's going to be a less income. So in reality, what CUNY is trying to do at the moment is just keep their head above water. And also, I believe that, again, they're trying to tackle the structural frame. But my curiosity extends to how are they actually addressing the other frame? So when it comes to human resource, political, and also symbolic, correct? I believe that, of course, they're going to have to figure out some way to tackle each one of these, because of the fact that until there's actually a vaccine that that addresses the coronavirus, we won't be actually in class, and we won't be able to feel this symbolic frame, or we ain't gonna be, or yeah, we won't be able to feel that symbolic frame. We won't be able to feel involved. We don't get the human resources that we need, because as time goes on, these budget cuts are also going to be continued forth. So for an example, recently when they had the ASAP was basically close. I wouldn't say completely removed, but the budgeting for it has been drastically decreased. And what's unfortunate is that I've actually met some students themselves who really rely on when it comes to the ASAP program. And the ASAP program is not, I don't believe they're realizing that's actually extremely detrimental, especially to low-income students who need that program. And low-income students are, a major part when it comes to actually income to the school. So removing that is going to be a huge issue. But when it comes to the structural thing, rephrasing what I was saying, is the fact that they are focusing on the structural program. The structural frame. And I actually also reviewed their strategic plan between the years of 2000, I believe 15 to 20, correct? And in the plan, it's interesting, because if you look at each one, it pretty much touches on each of the frames, right? So for an example, improve the student experience. That is one of the strategic plan goals, correct? And because of that, for an example, that involves into the symbolic frame. But how do you address that in a situation where everything is virtual? How do you improve the student experience, correct? Or strengthen the college readiness and improve the effectiveness of developmental offerings. So that also itself, prepare students for 21st century careers. Things along those lines. Framework construction. Yes, so just like that, yes, this was considered the strategic plan from 2015 to 2020. Let me make sure that's actually correct. But basically, because of that, obviously no one saw this coming. No one saw, it was 2015 and 2020. No one saw this COVID-19 pandemic. No one saw this coming. So obviously this is going to be implemented in the strategic plan. So in ultimate reality, I believe that for them to keep their head above waters and attempting to restructure the organization, I hope they actually made a great decision, because of the fact that we can't really say that these new presidents are going to make a difference, of course, because of the fact that, yes, they could have experience, they can have plenty of experience inside the field. But for an example, when it comes to Monroe, he had a little bit of experience here, he had a little bit of experience here, et cetera, et cetera. With that in mind, is that diversity of experience detrimental, or is it good for his position? Because it can go both ways, correct? And again, I'm super interested on how exactly they're going to be tackling the other frames, because at the moment, how I see is that the structural frame is the frame which is, yes, it's being reorganized, but I believe this is the frame that is extremely under pressure at the moment. I believe the symbolic frame is extremely under pressure. The human resources is extremely under pressure. And then obviously there's politics when it comes into the political frame is coming into things, because they're going to have to create some form of business decisions, especially when it comes to how do we even continue forth moving on? How do we survive till the end of the year? And because of that, again, I'm extremely interested. So if I was going to say what is going on within the structural frame at the moment, is the fact that it's being deteriorated through budget cuts, correct? Human resources. When it comes to human resources, because also the budget cuts, that's going to affect the students. And when you affect, I'm assuming that, I would say that the human resources and symbolic frame are correlated in a way. So, and the reason why I say that is because when you give human resources and you give the basic needs to these students, they feel involved, they feel this faith when it comes to the school. But we don't have either or. So how do we feel this faith, and how do we get these needs when it comes around? It's just going to be a bunch of politics from here on out, and I'm curious how that's going to go. So that's basically that was basically my perception of chapter 20. So basically how that specific that person reframed the high school. Also, I talked about a little bit, it's a very short description of the epilogue, so it was going over exactly what I was talking about. This is what a leader is. They're able to do this, this, and this, and that. I also went over what's going on in the world at the moment. So obviously the coronavirus. I went over how is this affecting CUNY. So how is this affecting the structural frame, specifically more in depth with that, and how does that apply to everything else? So when it comes to the human resources, human resources, the political, and the symbolic frame. So thank you.